The temperature on Green Lake, Wisconsin had been unusually high and had left areas of standing water as Tyler Gruen took to the ice. Strong winds from the south had also agitated the ice and caused a few cracks and steps, not normally a problem. But when Tyler hit a 2-metre wide crack, he jumped the gap. But his leeward skate hit the ice on the other side. France's Joyon is no stranger to records. From being the fastest across the Atlantic to setting a new 24-hour distance record. He's been the fastest man to sail solo around the world twice. His second record remained for 8 years and had only just been broken. Little surprise that he's a sailing rock star in France. But now Joyon has the big one, the ultimate. The outright record for the fastest circumnavigation under sail. But this time with a crew. His scorching lap of the planet saw his team hit the weather's traffic lights just as they went green, allowing them to set 6 new records along the way. But their most impressive achievement was the new time for a lap of the planet under sail. Slashing 5 days off the previous record set by Loïc Perron's crew aboard Banque Populaire 5 in 2012, Joyon's crew smashed it to make them the new holders of the Jules Verne Trophy. Having aborted their first attempt, 19 days later, the team restarted on December the 16th. 5 days into their second attempt, they were 210 miles ahead of the previous record pace. But the doldrums put the brakes on for what was to be their worst day of the trip, covering just 186 miles in 24 hours. As they entered the roaring 40s on the 11th day, their modest lead was now a significant deficit as they trailed by 755 miles. Taking a shortcut across the South Atlantic, they hitched a ride with a low-pressure system in the Southern Ocean and rode it like a giant surf team for 11 days. During this time, their speed barely dropped below 30 knots and peaked at 44. In just 4 days and 9 hours, they'd crossed the Indian Ocean and set a new record in the process. They were back on track, ahead of the record pace. As they passed to the south of Tasmania, they were leading by a day and a half. A week later, when they arrived at the notorious Cape Horn, they'd set yet another record for the fastest passage across the Pacific Ocean, and were now 4 days ahead of Banque Populaire's pace. But the climb back north through the South Atlantic proved to be tricky. A deep low off Argentina presented a nasty sea state with southwesterly winds. A compromise was needed between pushing hard to make headway north and preserving the boat. Their passage through the doldrums saw them detour a long way to the west and north of Fortaleza to enter the Northern Hemisphere. A plan that paid off. And IDEC sport never stopped. The final sprint saw Joyon's team ride another weather system to storm home at 30 knots. They'd smashed the world record and have raised the bar so high that few can imagine it being broken. Few apart from Joyon. The new America's Cup class boats have started to emerge. Built in secret, behind closed doors, this is the first time that they've been seen in public. These were no ordinary launches. These are the machines that will be used in the America's Cup. The fastest in 166 years of Cup racing, and the most advanced in the sailing world. Multi-million-dollar machines that have each taken more than 80,000 man-hours to create. Of the 6 competing teams, the first 3 to launch were Land Rover BAR, Oracle Team USA, and Emirates Team New Zealand.
It embodies all the research we've been doing over the last few years, both on the design side and the sailing side. So it's a really important milestone for us.
The new boats are smaller, lighter, and have fewer crew than the 72-footers of the last America's Cup in San Francisco in 2013. Yet with an estimated top speed of 46 knots, they'll match the pace of the 72s. Some say come the racing, they'll be even faster. All agree that they are way more manoeuvrable, but there's an even bigger change in store.
It's quite possible in the right wind conditions a boat may never touch the water, which will be quite a unique thing to see in America's Cup.
And in the propaganda battle that forms part of every cup, this is something the top teams are keen to show off. Achieving this big step has taken thousands of man-hours. Since San Francisco in 2013, teams have been sailing two types of cup boats: the identically matched AC-45s for the World Series events, and test boats in between the World Series racing. Often referred to as turbos, these high-performance machines have been prototypes for the final race boats that will be used at the 35th America's Cup this May.
Each boat that we've put on the water has been a leap forward. This boat's kind of the last piece of that puzzle.
A puzzle that will reveal a bigger picture of the 35th America's Cup. When your boat can travel at more than 4 times the wind speed, 10 knots is a breezy day on the ice. Speeds can regularly exceed 100 kilometers per hour. Propelled feet first, on your back in an open cockpit, with precious little suspension, you feel like you're approaching the sound barrier. But while the speed is exhilarating, it doesn't take much to trip up. Hit anything, and the results can be explosive. With a fleet of 50 boats on the racecourse, the closing speeds can be both alarming and intoxicating. Originally designed in the late 1930s, the DN is the most popular ice boat class, with big fleets in Europe and America. With 3 skates, 1 control line, and a tiller to steer with, the DN is a simple boat. But creating a fast one is a technical challenge, and an irresistible test for some of the world's best sailors, including those with Olympic experience. Former Finn sailor David Howlett coached 3 teams to 5 Olympic gold medals, including Ben Ainsley. But now, after 24 years of working towards other people's success, he's using his spare time to work on his own. And to switch to racing a DN, where one of the first hurdles was dealing with the big increase in speed.
My maximum so far during a race is 55.5 knots. Maximum anybody ever talks is 138, 140 kilometres an hour, which is 69, 70 knots. But I mean, I've done whatever 56 knots in probably 20 knots of wind. Surprisingly, I've done 35 knots in about 5 knots of wind. I'm coming to terms with it, but I think I am. But you definitely don't want to have a collision because it can be a bit dangerous.
Handling a DN is only part of the equation.
The big thing about the DN is the skates, which is a black art to me. So this is a normal skate for with no snow on the track. And if you've got snow anywhere, you have to put these ones which have got a bigger ground clearance. I've got 18 skates in total, but in the world you're only allowed to measure in 9 different skates. So people take all these 9 skates. Invariably, they'll all come up to you and say, oh, I've got exactly the right skate for these conditions, but it's in the boot of my car or it's in my garage back in Switzerland. Or then other people will grind them at night and they take machines to grind them with to change the shape of them, because they all talk about this angle down the bottom here, which is effectively around about 90 degrees, and then also the rocker line, which is on the bottom of the skate.
But even with the ability and technical know-how, the racing can hinge on another key factor.
It's an incredibly weather-dependent sport. You have to follow the weather, so you have to be a meteorologist. And it is frustrating because you could get somewhere and then find that you can't go. You're trying to find ice, deep, enough ice to carry all the people, enough ice which is going to stay there for the week, while we're hoping you're going to be there for the week. A forecast which hasn't got too much snow about to fall, and having some wind. And very difficult to find those circumstances.
But find them they will, driven by an addiction for fleet sailing at double-figure speeds. It had been a single-handed match race around the world. For 24,000 nautical miles, Armel Cleac'h aboard Banque Populaire and Alex Thompson, skippering Hugo Boss, had locked horns for 74 days. As the pair charged north, and with 300 miles to the finish, Thompson had reduced the gap to just 33 miles. The weather forced both skippers to take the long way round, sailing almost to the westernmost tip of the UK before tacking for France. And when they did, Thompson knew that the game was up.
There's no real option for me anymore. Doesn't look like there's any after attack is going to be wind. So yeah, I think my options have run out.
But Cleac'h had seen Thompson achieve the impossible before in this race and was taking nothing for granted.
C'est un peu compliqué parce que il y a beaucoup de trafic maritime. On aura être prudent et vigilant.
But just after dawn on the 19th of January, the Frenchman, who'd come second on 2 previous occasions, won the Vendée Globe after almost 10 years of trying.
J'ai rien lâché, pas un mètre. Chaque mètre gagné, c'est dur et puis je la voulais tellement cette victoire. J'avais l'impression que tout était contre moi. Et puis je me suis accroché. Et puis voilà, ça l'a fait, j'étais content, je me suis bagarré, j'ai eu beaucoup de soutien à terre, tous les gens qui m'envoyaient des messages, qui me disaient rien lâcher. Finalement, la victoire, je l'ai entrevue que la nuit dernière.
16 hours later, after struggling with a dying breeze, a philosophical Thompson crossed the line.
I had moments of pleasure for sure, but for me it was an exercise in trying not to be frustrated and try and be as positive as possible. It wasn't easy.
Breaking his starboard daggerboard early in the race had hindered his boat's performance, leaving Thompson with weeks to wonder what might have been. Yet as he headed for shore, he remained gracious in defeat.
He's a machine, eh? You know, he's such a great sailor, and you know, to come second twice, and you know, he had to be first this time. There must have been some pressure. So I mean, he's a wonderful sailor. He's such a nice guy, very understated, very modest, and I think I have to say the team as well, eh? You know, this race, everybody views it as individual race, but it's not. It's a team race, and the Banque Populaire team, you know, they've done a wonderful job.
Next month, the Caribbean 600 crew list read like a who's who of international sailing as the record-sized fleet tackled the 600-mile race around 11 Caribbean islands. Plus, how the foiling phenomenon is spreading to offshore racing. And why the oldest boat in the Olympic fleet is such a big attraction for the next generation.